Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob and today we'll be jumping into Malicious Compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Lost Kez. Go to the tenancy tribunal? If you say so. Let's jump right in. New Zealand has some particularly predatory property managers. Their prey is university students and young families who live in our bigger cities. There are stories in our news quite frequently about how poorly they treat tenants. I spent my 20s living in rental properties in Wellington. Most of the houses I lived in were super damp, mold-ridden crap heaps. They were also super expensive. They are even worse now. Fortunately, New Zealand has a fantastic tenancy tribunal who are sick of property managers preying on young people who do not have a lot of money. When I was about 28, my now wife and I found a beautiful house in a suburb called Berhampore. Close to the city, quiet area, near a bus stop, plenty of space including a pretty garden in the back, and, most importantly, not expensive. A perfect house. Just before we moved in, I took about 200 photos of the house. I'd become very wary of how easily property managers could rake a tenant over the coals for damage, garbage, etc. the previous tenant left behind. We spent a year and a half living there without incident. We had to report to the property manager that trash had been left under the house by the previous, and they dealt with it well. When we needed to install high-speed broadband, they were easy to deal with, and everything seemed to be going swimmingly. About 4 months prior to the end of our lease, I was offered a brewing job in the United States. I informed our property manager that we would need to break our lease earlier than expected, to which she replied, "No problem, let's arrange a time to meet." Prior to meeting with her, I researched her company's policy on moving out of rental properties prior to the agreed date. The company policy was that if a tenant broke the agreement early, then the tenant would have to pay $750 to the property manager. This was supposedly to cover the listing fee. I should mention at this point that listing properties in Wellington was not challenging nor expensive. Most properties were filled within a week. Some property managers were even expecting people to show up with cash to cover bond plus first month's rent when they were having viewings of the property. There was no way that $750 was going towards just the listing fee. When I went into our meeting, I told her that we were willing to ensure the property was cleaner than when we arrived, and also we were willing to offer an extra $200 for moving out prior to the lease ending. At that point, she showed me the company policy, which stated leaving prior to the end of the agreed lease date would mean a $750 fee for us as the tenants. I acted flabbergasted, as one would, to hear of this shocking news. At this point, our property manager explained to me that the tenants before my wife and I were in a similar situation and had left prior to the agreed date. I explained to her that this was extortion, and I thought it was incredibly unfair. I repeated to her that we had offered her $200 to help with relisting the property and that we were willing to list it ourselves. I also said to her that it was ridiculous to think that it would cost more than $100 to list and fill that property. She explained to me that is what the tenants before you did, paid the $750, and that's just what everyone does. To which I replied, just because everyone else does it doesn't mean it's right. We argued some more and left it unresolved. On my way out of her office, she said, "If this is still an issue, you should get in touch with the tenancy tribunal." With the rage of 1,000 suns and the ability to bottle emotions like a true Catholic, I managed to respond, "I'll do that." As soon as I got home, I went to the tenancy tribunal website and filed a complaint against the company she represented. Within a day, the tribunal had agreed to help me and contacted the property manager. In turn, she emailed me begging for mercy. "If you agree to drop the complaint, we won't charge you anything. The owner is very disappointed, but if you leave the house in good state, there will be no more issues." We're not absolute trash, so of course we cleaned the place thoroughly. We moved out without paying them a dime, but the real reward came when I saw her in the city and greeted her with a big smile and wave. I didn't think I had the power of invincibility, but she didn't seem to see me at all. Okay, for someone who lives in Canada, and I'm pretty sure this goes for all of our friends down in the States as well, $750 fee for breaking a lease early sounds like absolutely nothing. Up here, you break a lease, you're going to pay a minimum of 2 months, and in some cases, you might actually have to pay out the rest of the lease. It's crazy. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our second story today comes to us from Apprehensive Fall 403. You don't actually sell. Let's jump right in. I'm a service writer for a vehicle maintenance and repair shop. I have the capability to actually do the work, but I make more money for my company in sales and service and parts. So my job started when I came in 2 years ago from a different company. They hired me because not only can I sell, but I can complete the services that I sell. Fast forward about 6 months, and they are so impressed with my sales that they inform me that I'm only to perform the work if there's absolutely no other technicians available to complete the job within a timely manner. I would still be receiving my bonus for sales, as the name implies, sales bonus, great. So I get on it. I'm breaking records, bringing in new clients, teaching others to sell like I do. I'm making good money. Fast forward a bit more and they transfer me to another location where I'm quickly outshining their top service writer who was never given the order to only sell. I'm still expected to just sell. I checked when I was transferred. Shortly thereafter, said other service writer decides to get in touch with the owners and say that I'm stealing commission. The way commission works is this: service writer, whoever sells the job or part gets some, person performing the job gets some, so if you do both, you get more on that specific job. Pause here for a note. Well, I'm doing my sales job long term by now. I've informed customers on previous visits that they are coming up due for such and such services. They come back and ask me for it because, let's face it, I know my stuff to get said services completed on schedule. Thus, they are coming in requesting services. Returning to the complaint that I'm stealing, the other service writer complained that because I'm not actually doing the work, I shouldn't receive any commissions at all for services. He backs it up with the fact that customers are coming in requesting services, and therefore I'm not actually doing any actual selling, simply benefiting from customers crossing my path who are asking for commissionable services. Keep in mind, these are customers I've reached already and put in for future sales, on top of a new sale that I work on for the spot as well. The owner decided to take his side, thus my new job description is to simply service write, no commission, don't perform services, customer service only. You don't actually sell. These customers come in asking for these services, so you shouldn't benefit from this. Again, I'm fully aware that these are my previous customers whom I've given heads up that they will soon be due for certain services, but I keep my mouth shut. Alrighty then, I won't actually sell. I work for a bit of spare income. My husband is a wonderful mechanic who works at my original store, and he makes the big bucks in flag hours. Within a month, sales and services dropped dramatically as customers weren't coming in requesting commissionable services, and I'm no longer pushing sales at all. Why make them money if I'm not also making money? I'm not even allowed to perform the services, so there's no way that I can make commission at this point. Some time later, the owner drops in, wanting to know why the store suddenly stopped making sales. So I told him, I don't actually sell, so my commission stopped coming in, sir. A good meeting with the other service writer later, and I moved back to my other store, redeemed of any accusations of theft. With a raise, commissions are back to the way they used to be, and my sales have never been better. The other service writer, he's just a technician now, not even allowed to work with the customers at all. Maybe a small victory, but a victory all the same. Yeah, OP, you're right. If you do the legwork, you definitely deserve some of the commissions. Apparently they didn't realize just how much work you did. Our next story today comes to us from Aussie Jesus Duck God, Motorin Compliance. Let's jump right in. So I recently left a job at a Motorin. I'd been there for a month, just quit yesterday, cleaning hotel rooms while I study as something to bring in a little extra money. They had just had 2 people leave at the same time, so I was able to get my wife a job there with me. And these people I worked for were incredibly two-faced and flip-flopped on what they said quite regularly. One moment they'd compliment you and tell you you're doing a fantastic job at one area, such as making the beds, and then the next day they'd say the beds weren't made properly when they already signed off on it and praised you for it. It was very frustrating, and I brought it up to them and told them to just be honest with me. Give it to me straight. If I'm lackluster in areas, let me know so I can improve. And the first 2 times I said this, they'd say, "Oh no, you're doing very well, and we're lucky to have you, and there's not really much to improve on." Only for the next day to be given a laundry list of things that I'm not doing and that aren't up to their standards. I asked them a second time to just tell me what I'm not doing right, only to be given the same runaround. Come the third time asking, they told me, "Look, if you're not happy with the way we do things, then you should think about looking for work elsewhere." So I sat there and thought about it. Then my wife came home the other day and told me that they've been speaking to her in a similar manner and told her that the work she was doing wasn't good enough and that they couldn't keep paying for someone who doesn't do their job properly and that she'll be let go if she doesn't pick up her game. One of the complaints was that she didn't clean her showers properly. My wife and I had worked the same day together beforehand, and as my wife was under the weather, as she usually is this time of month, I double-checked her rooms and helped her out when I finished my wing and made sure everything was up to scratch. Aside from windows being left open or a decorative pillow not being in the right space, everything was fine. So they've been just pulling stuff out of thin air. So I complied with their idea of looking for work elsewhere, and my wife took up more shifts at her other job, left them short 2 workers again. Now, for my own curiosity, I reached out to the other 2 that just left before we got there, and it turns out they are notorious for doing stuff like this, and they've gone through 8 other staff members since January this year. Sometimes it just helps to ask a worker what the bosses are like before you start there. As was mentioned in the comments for this one, in a perfect world, you should be given the reference information of 3 employees that work for the employer, who you can call up and ask them what they honestly think of the job before you accept any offers. Wishful thinking. Our next story today comes to us from TwinMom2298. If we don't like it, leave? Okay, let's jump right in. Many years ago, I worked for a company that the compensation for most employees was base plus bonus. The bonus was approximately 1/4 of annual salary. The year I was hired, bonus structure was a simple, straightforward calculation and paid annually in January of each year based on production prior year. 2 years later, they decide to restructure the bonus program. Instead, each team is given a quota. No one receives a bonus until the quota is reached. But once the quota is reached, you would receive bonuses monthly based on a slightly different yet still easy to calculate formula. The teams were broken down into a team of 2 salespeople, another team of 2 salespeople, and a team of 4 salespeople. The team of 4 had a quota that was slightly more than double the other 2 teams, but top sales guy, one of the owners, was in that team. In August, 4-person teams makes quota, so in September, staff gets bonus on work done for that team. Come October, paychecks come out and no bonus for September sales. I asked bookkeeper about it and she says, "Well, quota hasn't been reached." I said, "We made annual quota in August and we got bonus in September." This is when we find out that the top salesperson and owner had removed himself from 4-person team and made a 1-person team, but kept quota the same for both the now 3-person team without him and for his 1-person team. That made those quotas almost impossible to reach and meant no one would receive a bonus for any work done for either team. I complained that this was not right and wasn't what we'd agreed to in our compensation package, and that by doing this, they were effectively cutting the compensation of every staff member by thousands of dollars a year. Owner tells me, "It is what it is. If you don't like it, you are free to leave." So 2 months later, I left because I'd also told every other staff member what they'd done and why no bonuses had been paid in October. By early March, all but 2 other staff members had also quit. This left them with an all-new and untrained staff, which eventually impacted client services and deliverability, and within a year, 3 salespeople had left, and within another year, the company had gone out of business. Some of the best wrap-up statements can always be found in the comments of the stories, and the one for this one says, "Greed has a way of kneecapping the guilty." It's perfect. Our last story today comes to us from ULFR. I'm on the phone. Let's jump right in. This isn't professional malicious compliance, but I do get a dangerous case of smug every time I reflect back on this, which is often. Most days, weather permitting, myself and my floof will head to the local dog park at about the same time. Yes, I am aware dog parks have a lot of risk associated. I'm very careful. My floof less so, but I have thumbs, so he has to listen. As we're usually there around the same time every day, I recognize most of the dogs and their parents. Fairly frequently, my new friends show up and everyone gets to know each other. It's a good time. A lot of social norms, for New England anyway, are relaxed, so it's not really weird to wind up talking to strangers. And as a rule, if someone you don't know is trying to get your attention, odds are you should probably see what they have to say before dropping the hammer. One morning in particular, a dog is engaging in a thankfully more rare form of icky things dogs do sometimes, which is finding a nice fresh dump on the ground and promptly rolling around in it. I pick up my dog's plops when he drops them. Other people are less conscientious. Now, I don't recognize the floof that's vigorously applying dog cologne, but that's no problem. One unknown dog, one unknown Karen. Having rescued a dog previously who was a notorious poop roller, I decided Karen might like a heads up, since she's talking on a cell phone, not watching her dog, and nobody wants to be in an enclosed space with a diarrhea diver. I mosey over and wave and say, "Excuse me," and Karen pivots to look at me, covers the bottom of her smartphone and hisses, "I'm on the phone." Well then, my mistake. I mosey back over to the group of people I know, and now we're all watching Karen's dog find 5 further fresh piles of feces to frolic in. Eventually, Karen gets off her super important phone call and summons her dog to leave. And right after she attaches the leash, she shouts, "Oh, why didn't anyone tell me he was rolling in crap?" I raise my hand and wave and say something to the effect of, "Hey ma'am, yeah, hi, you were on the phone." She turns beet red and makes hasty tracks to her car. Hasn't been back since. Don't know why. Her dog was awesome. Okay, I have to share this from the comments. It says, "Why is a dog park potentially dangerous? I was thinking of taking my future dog there." The next comment down says, "I don't think they're dangerous at all. In fact, I've gotten my last 3 dogs at the local dog park." Wait, what? Don't steal dogs, people. Come on. Check out all 5 OPs in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.